for low-income students, they're relying on school meals for more than half their calories. And so with over 900,000 kids who are enrolled in public schools and over a third of them low income, we really see that this is a great area where we can focus on to ensure that, that we see change. There are a couple things that I just wanted to touch on. I'm really pleased to hear Janet speak and also to read the book. I'm about a third of the way through it, but it's so true to my experience working with food service directors throughout the state. And one of the things that I think is so important is that it really highlights the complexity of school meals and all the various factors that impact school meals. I think that a lot of people will often look at school food and say, well, I don't understand why they just serve more fruits and vegetables or more whole grains. Why can't they just make it healthier? And it goes way beyond that. It is so much more complex than that. There are so many more levels and layers and factors that you don't see. So I think I would urge you to read the book if you really want to understand how school food works. There are a couple things that we have learned in our experience working with school food service directors. One of the comments that I hear all the time, and I definitely agree with, is it's one thing to put nutritious food on the line, but if kids aren't going to eat it, what is the benefit of that? And as an anti-hunger organization, we're really focused on food in the belly. And if food isn't actually getting into kids' stomachs, then there really is the benefit. So we've been trying to focus more on not just nutrition, but nutrition and palatability. And in 2006, we worked with the City of Boston, the Boston Public Health Commission, Boston Public Schools, and a chef that we hired to work in a couple different schools within Boston, and now he's in Lawrence High School and at Salem High School, to work with the cafeteria staff, to work within the reimbursable meal system, so work within the federal reimbursement, and to utilize the foods that are available to school food service directors, and to start doing some scratch cooking and doing some training of cafeteria staff, and teaching them how to, teaching them knife skills and other cooking skills, and really focusing on palatability, presentation, marketing, and meal appeal. Not just this is a healthy food, but let's make healthy food that kids will eat. And we found that after doing a plate waste study that the students did eat the food, and that participation in the schools that did have the chef went up considerably. And I'm not saying that every school should have a chef, because you probably can't afford it, but I do think that focus on palatability, presentation, and marketing is critical. It's not just about putting broccoli on the serving line. You've got to make sure that the kids are actually going to eat it. The other thing I wanted to address has to do with gradual change. I know that many food service directors say you can't do wholesale change, you have to have incremental change. And as Donna talked about, the federal government is proposing new standards for what's going to be required as part of school meals. These are pretty drastic changes, and they're going to be challenging for schools to meet them. And so in order to make sure that food service directors can meet those goals when they come in place in probably 2012, 2013, we've got to start now. We've got to start making incremental change now to prepare for when the changes are required. And then the last thing I would say is just that, and I think Janet spoke about this as well, is that this can't just be something that the food service director has to do alone. It has to be a community effort. It has to be something that we all get behind. We all support school food service department, that they can't be the people without legs, that they're an incredible part of the school environment, and often they are looked down upon and not seen as part of the educators or as part of the administration. They have an important part to play, important role to play in the health and wellness of our children. And I think it's something that we as a community need to support schools. And I'm talking about, kids actually trying the meals, parents at home, if they have a completely different menu at home versus at school, that is going to impact the quality of meals. If the corner store is serving chips and soda in the morning right across the street from the school, that impacts the school. The emphasis on time on learning cuts into the amount of time that's available for lunch and breakfast. And so there are all these factors that definitely impact the quality of school meals, and it's really important for the entire community to get behind school food services to see change. So thank you.
I'm Maureen Binienda, and I'm principal at South High School. The issue of food has, for quite a long time, always been a concern of ours. In particular, this year, with the economy the way that it is, at this present time, we have 177 homeless children and families that attend South High School. And those are the identified students that we have. So the issue of food has, long been something that we've thought about at South High School, and we have a youth policy council, which is made up of 29 students who meet every Wednesday, 2 to 4, that help target some of those issues of both hunger and homelessness. As you know, those issues are very closely related. So listening to what you've been talking today, I was thinking of the initiatives that have happened at South High School and are still happening. And it made me feel really proud of the students and the staff for some of the things that so far have been accomplished. So I'd like to share those with you. Last year we started a school garden, the community garden in the school, and there are 4 community gardens. Last year the students planted kale, parsley, and eggplant. And during the summer, we actually included the severe special needs students who, during their summer school, also watered the garden. So we wanted everybody to be involved in this project. Our thought was that because we volunteer at some of the food markets, the open food markets, that in the fall we would bring these vegetables to the open food market. So in the summer, as I would go and check on the vegetables, I started noticing that little by little the vegetables were disappearing. And we're wondering exactly what was happening to the vegetables. And then a most amazing thing happened. We found out that the elderly who live around the school would go for their walks around the school, would be looking at those vegetables and thinking that, well, these are ripe, it doesn't look like there's anyone here now to eat them. So they were taking the vegetables, and so we were feeding through the summer into the early fall the elderly that were around the school who were on a limited income. So that was a very nice unintentional thing that happened. The elderly were eating, good vegetables, and the students had planted those. So this year, when we do our gardens, we're going to go to the elderly and ask them if they would like a little job, like helping to water them, and so that we will include them in our community. So that's our plan for this year. We at South High School have our own food bank. We found out that during the year that there were a lot of families that weren't making it with their food stamps or didn't feel comfortable going to the food pantry. So we began our own food bank, and we have maintained it now since November. Many community agencies are helping us with that. We do a lot of, we're a service learning school, so we do a lot of volunteer in the community. And one of the places that we volunteer is the Hanover Theater. And so the Hanover Theater has adopted South High School, and every time a volunteer comes to usher, they bring food for the pantry at South High School. And the list that is listed at the pantry is all very helpful food, such as we have a large Hispanic population, so we have a lot of rice and beans, we have a lot of vegetables, and so we have been able to maintain our food bank. The access for our students to get that is through the health center. We run something at South High School that is unique. In November, the week before Thanksgiving, we run Hunger Week. In all classes, students learn about hunger and about food. So math class, they learn statistics about food. Project Bread comes, all the agencies around come and speak to the students. We have like 26 different speakers. Every day is different subjects. So on Mondays, English, they read about food, stories about food. Tuesday might be social studies, what's the historical perspective of food. Thursdays, we have been very lucky that 30 doctors and medical people from UMass come and they talk about the biological effects of food. So food has become a part of classes and conversation at South High School. From that, this year, many students came and said that there isn't enough food in our house, and what can we do? So that's how the food pantry got started. Similar to other communities where we call it the backpack program. Students go to the health center for 2 reasons. One, when they go for regular physicals, the conversation about food is brought up. Do you have enough food in your house? Do you feel like you're eating the right food? And from there, if they find they need it, that's where our food pantry is. The students come in, they fill the backpack as many times a week as they would like, and then at the end of the day, they pick it up. As in many other backpack programs, they leave the school with the backpack on, and other students think it's books, and it's actually healthy food to get their family through the week. Right now we have 86 students participating in that backpack program, The Youth Policy Council students here are invested in it, and so they got a grant from United Way, and they started a backpack program in our feeding middle school. So now we have it in the middle school and also in the high school. We would like to expand it, and we're just very happy that we've been able to be successful and keep it going at this point. We're an all-water school. We do not sell soda at South High School. In our vending machines, we are a water school, and that was thanks to Donna Lombardi, who suggested that we might like to try that. We serve universal breakfast at South High School. Every student gets free breakfast. During our Hunger Week, Taya, who is actually a graduate of Worcester State, a Holocaust survivor, she comes and speaks to our students. And one of the students came up to me and said, we waste way too much food. You know, you would watch kids throwing the milk containers not even open into the trash. So we started Taya's sharing table. Instead of throwing your milk away, you can put it at a table or leave it on your table. The administrator that's in charge, we teach in the cafeteria. We just put it in a spot, and kids, if they want extra milk, they're able to go get it. We never have any food left over at the end of the lunch, and we're not throwing away food, and students are aware of that's not good to have waste. The other thing is that we reinstated a cooking class at school. We were able to sustain it for 3 periods a day. So students are now learning nutrition, they're cooking, and they run every lunchtime a full cafeteria for staff. And it's collegial, and the students are learning how to cook, and the staff are also having a very collegial time enjoying food. One of our staff several years ago decided to join the students in the cafeteria for lunch, and then came to me and said, you know, why can't staff eat in the cafeteria with students? So every couple of months, sometimes we try to do it every month, we have Bring Your Staff to Lunch Day. This Friday is Bring Your Staff to Lunch Day. Students get their forms in homeroom. They give them to a staff member. We offer a little something special for the 2 of them. It's a dessert to eat together, and you can't get that unless you come with the staff. So the staff and the child come together, and it actually has made lunch very collegial. We consider our custodian workers part of our cafeteria and custodian, part of our staff. We do an MCAS video before every MCAS. The one we did last year had all our cafeteria workers mixing in bowls and then all holding up to 40 so that everyone would know that's the number to get, and so everybody in the school is responsible for students being successful. So this year we want to make the point of breakfast more successful. Project Bread offered a contest which we're going to enter. So our video, TV department now, we're moving from our Youth Policy Council to other groups in the school, taking responsibility for knowing about what's healthy and what food, what's good for you. So we're gonna, this can only be, well, how many seconds was it? Like,
maybe we can wait to do that until people have had a chance for questions, because I'm afraid people are going to need minutes.
okay, so we'll show you the video. It's only, I think it's 90 seconds. So it's not a very, 90 seconds.
We could do 90 seconds, yes?
Yeah.
It's a public service announcement, so let me just show that to you so far.
Okay, and then keep with your questions, and I want you to know that the panelists and our speaker Janet are going to hang around. If you don't get a chance to raise your question from your seat, please come up. They are very interested in talking with you. And say to whom you would like to direct it. The speakers will stay at the table with the mics. Yes?
I would like to know how you foresee the budget cuts being rammed through Congress right now impacting your program.
Well, speak to the mic.
Right. In the external context, I'm very concerned that budget cuts being considered in Congress now will increase the need for school food and for families to rely on school meals. the funding for school food itself is so complicated that I don't think they'll be able to reduce the funding for school food itself through this round of budget things, partly because we just got finished with child nutrition reauthorization, and I mean, it's possible, but it's difficult. A great deal of the funding from school food actually goes back to a peculiar thing that was done in 1935 that allocated a third of the previous year's customs receipts for support for American agriculture, and a lot of school food funding actually comes from that section 35. So I'm not worried that there's going to be an immediate cut to school food, but I am very worried that there isn't going to be the increase we're going to need to keep up with the prices that are rising now around the world and will hit our school food procurement, and that the need is going to rise dramatically. I don't know if...
Yeah, that's true in the long term. A lot of the language in the new reauthorization drafts refer to improvements and efficiencies in the school feeding operations and the delivery of meals themselves. Here in Worcester, we had a committed community and a committed governing authority that allowed us to improve our efficiencies, and some of that came, in some communities you're allowed to adjust your labor. In other communities, the union may go to a mayor, and a lot of times these programs were, you know, just big hiring machines for different elected officials. Here in Worcester, they recognized, even 5 years ago, we went through a reorganization where we are continually improving our operations so that the majority of the funding that comes in for the meals is there for the quality and the types of foods that we buy to expand our program. That in turn has also has resulted in increased meal participation.
Another question. Yes.
You talked about funding the free food in schools, and I know that you mentioned earlier about 17 billion meals per year.
7 billion.
Oh, 7 billion, I'm sorry. But you also talked about that being borne by the taxpayers. I mean, would that come out of property taxes? Would that be a special tax? You also talked about taxing higher income more. How would that look, especially for people going to a, you know, for people who had their kids going to a private school? You know, I mean, that's kind of, you use Sweden as your example, so I mean, that's kind of mirroring a socialist economy almost. How would that?
Okay, fair enough question. I think you're asking me how much would it cost and where would it come from? My back of the envelope calculation of what it would cost us to do universal free school meals in the United States is probably about $12 billion a year. So it's not a small sum. On the other hand, it's you know, a month of the Iraq War, so it's not an unmanageable sum. If I were Empress of the Universe, I would raise that money by taxing capital gains at a level more like we tax work. Right now, the tax rate on capital gains is about 15%. It's the level at which our lowest tax bracket. I would raise the capital gains tax that's unearned, I mean, that's not based on work, to similar to the average rate at which we tax income from effort. So, you know, obviously there are many ways we could go about this. I do want to say that because of the complexities of the funding, I am not able to calculate all of the savings that would accrue. So my $12 billion estimate may actually be on the high side because it's very expensive to do the three-tier eligibility system. We have to print the applications and send them home and process them and what have you. When they experimented with another approach in Philadelphia, they saved the equivalent of 30 staff members for a year. I mean, it costs us a lot to do this. Now, I tried to take that into account somewhat, but so the arguments can be pretty strong. It is absolutely true that if we move to it through a general taxation, it would fall on people whose kids may not be using the system or who might not have any children. As I say, I think that's an investment worth making.
I guess my question would be, could that be something that we could even add into the property taxes? I mean, a lot of the money from property taxes already go into funding of public schools.
The problem with basing school funding on property tax, I mean, we already do, and so that leads to enormous disparities between the educational opportunities that are available to children in wealthy communities, where property tax can bring in a lot of money, and those that are available to youngsters in less wealthy communities. So I personally wouldn't want to do something that increased that disparity. On the other hand, I'm willing to accept, I'm willing to look at all approaches.
Yes.
Justine, you had mentioned the need to make food more palatable so that kids will eat it more, and I think this also speaks a little bit to the cost issue. I actually recently heard Brian Wansink speak about the idea of rearranging lunchrooms in order to, get kids to eat more salad without even realizing it, things like that. And I wonder what you all think of the possibility of that and implementing it in schools and how that would work.
Yeah, I think Donna would have a better sense of what is actually possible in the cafeteria setting, but from our experience with the Chefs in Schools initiative, a lot of what we did wasn't necessarily about where we placed the food. It was more about the culture that we created within the school and also in the cafeteria. So, we went in and we repainted the cafeterias, and so we changed the look. We had bright signage. We made the line look more attractive. The chef really worked with the cafeteria staff on encouraging students to try the food. The chef himself went out into the cafeteria with cups of homemade soup that he made and really encouraged the kids to try it. And then the cafeteria staff, because they bought into it, were telling the kids, hey, try this. Oh, the chef just cooked this up. Or on the days that he's not there, hey, we just cooked this up, why don't you try it? And so really using that positive selling technique instead of saying, when the kid says, what's this? I don't know what it is, that we can reserve it, or, which is something that happened in the beginning, before, when the chef first came in, there was a lot of that pushback from the staff. But really changing the culture, and we saw dramatic cultural shifts within the cafeteria, within the school, and among the students. But then
And I think with the infiltration of the processed foods, we got to a point where the school tray, many of the components became unidentifiable. So not only, addressing your center of the plate with something very palatable, and, we find through experience, because of our budgetary constraints, that if the ingredients are fresh and taste good, oftentimes even when my staff does not cook to perfection, the taste and the look of the product is still a lot better than a processed item. And then when you combine, what you can do with your center of the plate with where you place your fruits and vegetables, yes, definitely there is an increase in the intake and the acceptance. What we also found this is mainly through the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable grant, but it's infiltrated, that grant has influenced also the school meal program, that students, if they're coming from different cultures, even immediately into the city or wherever they're going to settle here in the States, they're used to open markets, fresh, unprocessed fruits and vegetables. So we have a really high intake of those items, and I think we're to have the advantage of having certain populations in school eat it, and that will infiltrate into the others. We had an incident this fall. We changed our pre-plate system in our real small schools where we can't sustain a full-service cooking staff. So we had to go center of the plate. We use whole grains. Oftentimes it's significantly less processed than what I would buy in the open market. We converted the fruit and vegetable components, and we took away all the processed fruit and vegetable components to raw, locally grown. And by accident, sure enough, the beginning of the year, there was the cookie put on the plate, because in some instances cookies count as a grain. The students did not take the cookie because the fruits and vegetables were the right size. They were placed similarly to what you saw. They took that over the sweet stuff.
All right. Yes, Jean.
The issue of school food is so important, it's critical, and it's a topic of discussion that's long overdue, so I'm really grateful that everybody came together to have this conversation, this discussion. And there's a lot of great work that's been going on, so that's the good news. my question is, what can we do to make more of a difference? Or if we're just starting at the beginning of this, depending on where we are, what can we do if we're teachers, if we're parents, if we're students, if we're advocates, if we're concerned citizens? Because it could easily be overwhelming to know where to start. So I don't know if each of you might have an idea of what one thing could we all do? Or depending on our role, what could we do?
I think I'll just answer quickly. Certainly here in Worcester, we have community support. And as I watch the evolution of what's going on in Boston and some of my other experiences in other communities, when the community does not support the director and when the school does not support the staff, it's so difficult as the director to get the staff motivated and happy, and that transcends into the students' attitude and their intake. As you see at South High, we have an incredibly ideal setting, and what that translates into is above average meal participation rates and acceptance. Again, knowing I'm not perfect yet, we're not there totally yet, but if you look at these larger major cities where there are problems, it really is a function of a lack of support within the community, whereas in Worcester, we've had support from the beginning, from the Food Advisory Council that transcends into the mayor's position, to Jim McGovern, to you, and then the principals, the business manager, certainly the superintendents that we've had. It's a much easier environment to progress forward.